Hi guys, and welcome to Jonty's Corner, where today I'll be taking a closer look at that most recent and obvious addition to Formula 1, which is of course the halo. Now whether you love it or hate it, no one can deny that increased head protection is sorely needed in all single seat formulas. You only need to look at the scary incident for Felipe Massa in Hungary in 2009, or of course the tragic accidents which took the lives of Henry Surtees at Brands Hatch in 2009, and that of Justin Wilson at Pocono in 2015. There have also been notable incidents such as the now infamous start crash at Spa 2012, and a crash with Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen in Austria 2015 where Nando's floor was perilously close to Kimi's head. Now, back when the proposal for head protection was first put forward, we saw renders of a halo design produced by Mercedes with the involvement of the FIA, and this first design actually looked pretty cool. It was slick, it was well contoured, and even had a hinge arrangement at the rear to allow for easy entry and exit of the driver, and of course easier extraction if the driver required it. Now during this period of early development we did see some pretty wide-ranging designs, some offering great protection but with difficulty extracting the driver, and some offering slightly less protection but a much better aesthetic feel, although this one that you can see in the bottom left, whilst looking very cool, it would be very difficult if a tyre was to hit that because it would probably stick, and that's not something a driver wants when they're trying to avoid the rest of the car at 150 miles an hour. Ultimately we ended up with this early test version of the halo which seems almost thrown together just to get a proof of concept, but it did actually work and worked very well. But it was clear that more development was going to be required to make it stronger and more refined aesthetically. Now, even at this stage teams were trying other solutions which were better aesthetically. Even though the halo was undergoing tests and further development, Red Bull were championing the aeroscreen idea, but during testing you can clearly see that a lot of the polycarbonate breaks into shards flying towards the driver, although it is worth noting that the thick strengthening bar, presumably made of carbon fibre, was remaining intact, which is a big step forward from other screens we've seen. Notably, the shield which Ferrari were trying to push forward, which when tested exploded into shards all over the place and barely deflected the tyre, although it did, but only missing the driver's head by a few millimetres, which clearly isn't enough. And besides that, Sebastian Vettel complained of feeling dizzy during testing of the shield, which isn't really ideal at 200 miles an hour. Then, just a couple of weeks before the car launches, Mercedes produced a video showing us this, the final design of the halo which will be used for 2018. As you can see, it's virtually identical to the second version which was put through testing by the FIA, and it has been refined greatly from the very first version we saw earlier. Taking a closer look, you can see that this version of the halo is made up of 5 different parts which have been welded together using the TIG welding process, as that's all you can really weld titanium with. And even at this stage there have been small changes from the second version which underwent testing. As you can see in these images, the T section at the front deformed quite badly when it was struck by the tyre, and that's just from the rubber tyre, not the wheel itself, so this did require changing, and as you can see later on the new version it is very much thicker. Looking at the construction of the parts themselves, I suspect that they've actually been put together through a process known as additive manufacturing, which I'll cover in greater detail in a future video. And you can tell this by the finish of the material itself. It has that slightly matte, rough look to it, which is not what you'd usually expect from extruded or machined section. If you look at these parts here and here, you can see the same kind of finish, and these are parts which I know to be made through the additive manufacturing process. Now there is another possibility that it has been made with traditional methods using tube and sheet metal, and has then been sandblasted, which has happened on the welds afterwards. When you can see the same finish here on something I was working on a couple of weeks ago, but given the size and complexity of the halo, it just isn't a feasible option as there's too many variables when trying to produce something through traditional methods of rolling, bending, forming and so on. The beauty of using this is that you get a truly homogeneous piece of metal, unlike traditional casting which can leave air gaps or voids as they're known, and that can cause significant weakness within the metal structure itself. It also allows for the metal to be machined with high precision and no risk of the material breaking. If you look at these few images I've got coming up now, I've highlighted some areas where you can see that shiny finish from the previous images where it has been machined after the production so that they can get truly precise fits for everything. As you can imagine, within Formula 1, precision is key, and the precision to which elements can be machined is insanely small. And these are just little giveaways which let me know how the Halo has been put together, and it shows that it's a very strong piece of equipment, more than up to the task that it's been designed to do. One final point I would like to make on the video that Mercedes released is the fact that I believe the one they're showing is just for testing fitment purposes. I don't think this is a final one which we'll see used on a car, purely down to the fact that A, there are two different bolts used in its fitting, although that could just be temporary, and also B, the quality of the welds. Taking a closer look, it's very poor. This would not pass any kind of standards test in the welding world. It wouldn't pass what's known as a dye penetration test, and it certainly wouldn't pass an X-ray. If you just look at the image next to it, that is what a weld is supposed to look like. So that's my look at the construction of the Halo, a little bit more in depth than what you've been given by the FIA or any of the teams themselves. Tell me what you think. Was there anything else you'd like to know that I could look into, or do you still just hate it no matter how well it's been put together? That's entirely up to you. And subscribe. I will be producing videos not as often as I'd like to begin with, but I will certainly do my best. If you've got any suggestions of things you'd like to see, then please by all means drop them in the comments. And finally, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time around Jonty's Corner.